It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, we regret to inform the audience it is just the two of us today. No Derek Bell, no Nick Farabaugh, just the two of us. So people that came here think we were just going to run it back with Derek. We know the comments are always flooded with praise his way, which we get 100%. We also love DB. But Alan, just you and I today.
Don't say just minimalizes the chemistry.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
you're right.
The beauty. Right.
The real Steelers Afternoon Drive crew will appreciate the fact that it's just the two of us, but
it's not just. It's the classic lineup, right?
Okay.
Everybody wants everything to be classic.
They get
vintage Steelers Afternoon Drive right here.
Vintage Steelers Afternoon Drive right here. Still not in the pool. Maybe that is coming at a later episode, but for now, we are just with our regular backgrounds here, Alan. I wanted to bring up a deal that doesn't involve the Steelers, but does impact
the Steelers.
Yes, but could impact them. Rhamondre Stevenson signing a new 4-year deal with the New England Patriots. 4 years, $36 million, $17 million of that guaranteed. $12 million of that is incentives based off him hitting 1,400 yards in a season or making a Pro Bowl, All-Pro, those types of things. Obviously, Steelers running back Najee Harris looking for a new deal. Where does this give them maybe a little bit of a benchmark in what you could be looking for in a Najee Harris contract?
I mean, I think Najee Harris is a better player than Rhamondre Stevenson. I don't know. What's your opinion about that? I mean, I understand the yards per carry argument, and I've made it, but part of what you're paying for a running back is durability, not just ability.
Yeah.
He's also a better receiver. He's better in short yardage and goal line. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that I'd rather have Najee Harris than Rhamondre Stevenson.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the receiving thing because the last couple of seasons, Rhamondre has done that as well for New England, but they also just brought in Antonio Gibson, who that's entirely what he does. So I'm kind of curious to see how that cuts away from his workload as a receiver. And if so, to me, that kind of diminishes him a little bit as a player if he's not going to be taking on that role for them. But I agree now with Rhamondre Stevenson being the 7th highest paid running back in terms of the per year basis. To me, Najee Harris is the better player than Rhamondre Stevenson is. I think if, you were to look at, again, you brought up the per carry and stuff like that. The efficiency obviously early in Najee's career, but I don't know if you're asking me to you're just taking one player and putting them in pretty much any system and equal. I'm taking Najee Harris every single time over Rhamondre Stevenson.
And this deal is $9 million a year. Now, only the first 2 years are guaranteed, 17 of the $36 million, but $9 million a year. Even if we assume, let's just say that all the guaranteed money is in the first 2 years, and they are gonna cut him at year 3. Let's just only talk in terms of guaranteed money. Forget the incentives. Forget the money out there that's not guaranteed. This is 2 years, $17 million guaranteed for Rhamondre Stevenson. The Steelers turned down 1 year, $6.8 guaranteed to keep Najee Harris for 2025.
Yeah. So
they turned down less than that's almost 50% more is a Stevenson deal. Almost 50% more. I just that's so much more. I don't know why I can't have any optimism for I didn't have a lot before this, but I can't have any optimism for an extension between the Steelers and Najee Harris at this point. It seems to me very clear that this will now be his last season in Pittsburgh.
I'm in the same boat. The thing is, a lot of people are trying to say, and I'm not saying this isn't the case, but, wanting to see him within this offense, not saying that they don't value him at the price tag to not pick up his 5th-year option. It's more about wanting to see him in this offense before doing so. But it's just hard for me to get from them not picking up, like you said, a $6.8 million option to them extending him then for this price, if not more. than that. So like, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think this is going to be his last season in Pittsburgh. And again, for me, I don't even like, if I'm Najee Harris, I'm not that upset about getting to hit free agency a year earlier than he should have been if the Steelers were to pick up that 5th-year option. And I think he's looking at this deal and thinking, okay, I'm going to do maybe even better than he thought he was going to do on the open market.
Okay, so I think we're in pretty solid agreement that this is not going to happen. I think a better question is this a good idea? Or, you know, I understand the market value of running back is what it is. Najee Harris is an interesting case study. What do you make of this strategy? The Steelers basically saying we're comfortable letting Najee Harris walk.
I would have picked up, I said this before, I would have picked up the 5th-year option and then let him walk after that. I don't have a problem with them not extending him for a number like this or higher, but I would have had him here for 2025 at $6.8 million.
If the market is $9 million a year for Rhamondre Stevenson, then I think $6 million for Najee Harris is a good deal, and you should take it.
Yeah,
like I think that's pretty clear. So I think I'm in agreement there as well. I would not have. I mean, I don't know. Okay, would you have given Najee Harris this deal that Rhamondre Stevenson just got?
Oh, I'm like, I don't. It's one of those things where I think I could talk myself into it. I would lean no, but I think that I could probably talk myself into being okay with it. There's not a world where I'm like, yes, slam dunk, this is a great deal to give Najee Harris. I think there's a world where I can talk myself into it, but ideally, I wouldn't have wanted them to give a deal like this to him.
Yeah, I don't think this would be a good deal for Najee Harris. It would be like, I don't think it would be the end of the world, but I would not call it a good deal. How about that? Like, I don't think it's like a devastating mistake, because I do think that Harris is a fairly durable player. And so you're probably likely to at least get him through those 2 guaranteed years. I wouldn't think it would be a horrible mistake, but I wouldn't call this a good deal for Najee Harris. And I think Najee Harris is a good bit better than Rhamondre Stevenson. I think this is an awful contract from the Patriots standpoint. But I just don't.
Do you think having Jaylen Warren also in the fold would make a deal like this better or worse? Because you're mentioning durability as like the best factor that Najee Harris has really brought. With Jaylen Warren's inclusion, you would think like to continue to take some tread off those tires, keep it on Najee and take some miles off of him, that should be able to continue. But like at the same time, you're not getting as much bang for your buck if you have another running back in the fold. So like, how do you weigh that?
I mean, I assume that if you sign either of these guys to that deal, that the other is not long for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm assuming if you're paying a running back $9 million, you're probably keeping him beyond, you know, and you're not keeping the other one, right? Because I mean, Jaylen Warren's a restricted free agent at the end of this year too. So if I'm signing Najee Harris for $9 million, like even the RFA tender, then you're spending a lot of money on running backs next year. That's where you're at that point. If I'm signing Najee Harris for $9 million, I'm probably trying to trade Jaylen Warren, right? That's to me like where I'm at if I'm the Steelers. I think the reason Jaylen Warren makes this a bad deal is because Jaylen Warren has shown how replaceable Najee Harris is. How he's been the better player. Like, you can argue that maybe he wouldn't hold up over the same workload, but they were pretty near 50-50 last year, and Warren was the better player. And I don't really think that there's I don't get a lot of pushback from that. You know, like I don't think that's controversial at this point.
No, and that's why the way that I was thinking about it, again, I would have picked up Najee's 5th-year option, rolled into it with both of those guys for this season and next. And then obviously, like, not exactly Najee Harris, but in whatever form or fashion, finding a back that kind of replicates that element that he brings to the table to go with Jaylen Warren. And that's kind of the way that I would have built this backfield going forward. Ride whatever you can get out of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren the rest of the way. Let him walk, do whatever after 2 seasons, and then find somebody to replicate, again, what he brings to the table. Maybe not necessarily the production, but again, somebody that can go with Jaylen and complement Jaylen to bring what he doesn't bring to the table.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too. Like, there's a lot that Najee Harris has that isn't that useful to the Steelers. You mentioned his durability not being that useful to the Steelers. He's a very underrated receiver. The Steelers just don't need him to be one because Jaylen Warren is a better third down back. But to somebody, like, I think that certainly that Najee Harris will be more valuable to someone else than he will be to the Steelers.
Yeah, 74 receptions in his rookie season, but like it's just constantly gone down since then, obviously, with the inclusion of Jaylen Warren. The other thing that I kind of thought about when I saw this deal was, and Joe Mixon is like right there too. And then obviously we know the higher priced running backs, but I was starting to wonder, like, is this just going to be the trend, or can we maybe say that this is an anomaly? Like, what if the next running back that's kind of like of this same ilk doesn't get like within this range? Is it feasible to say, okay, maybe we're not talking about $9+ million for Najee Harris? Well, I guess, did we even see another back get paid before Najee Harris is another question there. But is it possible that this is just like a one-off?
It's possible, but I don't know how. I mean, that's a tough question to answer. Like,
because the reason that I thought about this is, like, the quarterback market kind of, and this is totally different, obviously, talking about quarterbacks to running backs, but when Deshaun Watson got a fully guaranteed contract, a lot of people's minds went to, oh, that's going to be that way for quarterbacks all the time now, and it's not. So, like, there are some teams and some players that kind of just operate that way, and maybe it is a one-off. Maybe Rhamondre Stevenson getting this deal, despite maybe New England was the only team that was going to give him that deal, and he wouldn't have gotten it anywhere else. Maybe Najee Harris will hit the free agent market thinking that this deal is going to be available for him, and it's not.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to predict those deals where the market is just gonna. Kirk Cousins, same thing, got that fully guaranteed deal. This is going back several years now, and was the first one to do that, and everyone thought, oh, every quarterback's going to need a fully guaranteed deal now, and it really hasn't turned out to be that way. I'm not sure how you predict those sort of one-offs, right? Like, I don't know. The Patriots are also in a very unique circumstance where, like, the rest of the team is garbage that nobody wants. So, like, they can pay him whatever they want to pay him, and it doesn't really matter. Like, they're going to spend to the salary cap just because. So, like, I don't know. I think this contract's a mistake. I think other GMs will see it that way, but I'm not sure that we'll see. I don't know. I think that's really hard to predict what agents are going to think about what their players deserve to be paid, what teams are going to think about what this means the market says. You probably need another back to get paid like this to really be 100% on that trend. I agree with that.
Yeah. That's kind of the way that I was looking at it as well. Do you have any other thoughts on this deal or the way that it impacts Najee Harris and the Steelers?
I don't think so. Like I said, I was pretty sure that Najee Harris was entering the last year of his Steelers tenure anyway. So, I don't. It's not like earth shattering to me, but yeah.
Speaking of players that are looking for a new deal, Cam Heyward came up today. It's interesting because we've talked about, like, this all that needs to happen for Cam Heyward to be a surefire Hall of Famer is him to get a Super Bowl ring. Everybody's talked about, get Cam a ring because it makes him a Hall of Famer and all these things. I want to get your take on that, though. Is Cam Heyward a Hall of Famer right now as it stands? And also, I guess I just brought up a second question into my mind. How much should a Super Bowl ring factor into a player being a Hall of Famer?
Well, I think that's two pretty good and two pretty different questions. So this came up. There was a historian that said he felt like Cam Heyward is already a Hall of Famer, and we have that story up at SteelersNow.com. I don't agree with that. I don't think he's already a Hall of Famer. I think he's pretty close, but you can, and if you're familiar with Pro Football Reference, there's a great tool on Pro Football Reference called the Hall of Fame Monitor Score. It's not 100%, but it basically shows you what the voters care about. And the things the voters care about, being on all, and in fact, one of them is not on here, but being on all decade teams, all pros, Pro Bowls, Super Bowls, and then their statistical accomplishments. And when you're talking about defensive tackle, like, statistical accomplishments are not going to be a big part of the puzzle. Like, they just aren't. Cam has 80 sacks. Like, that's probably enough. I'll be honest. Like, just the stats, he's probably there. But I think when you look at the other stuff, not a member of an all-decade team, 3-time All-Pro, good, but not like overwhelmingly great. I mean, you kind of look, and I feel like there's this pack of guys that are a little bit older than him that did not get in. Kevin Williams, Haloti Ngata, and Vince Wilfork, that I think were pretty similar players to Cam Heyward. Then there's this another group that's coming out at the same time as him, and Ndamukong Suh, Geno Atkins, Fletcher Cox, a bunch of similar guys there to me too. I don't know how much better Cam is than that pack. He's clearly behind guys like Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt. They're going to go first. I think everybody understands that. But I don't see Cam stepping out from that pack in a way that makes me think, oh, he's definitely a Hall of Famer when these guys weren't or aren't. I don't know. I think a Super Bowl, we'll talk about the Super Bowl too, but just talking about Cam as a player and sort of the way things go right now, no Super Bowl, 3 All-Pros, 6 Pro Bowls, was not part of an all-decade team. I think that's borderline to like maybe just off the borderline. And I think, you look at some of those other guys. Geno Atkins was a 2-time All-Pro and an 8-time Pro Bowler. He didn't win a title either. Nada did win a Super Bowl, was a 2-time All-Pro and a 5-time Pro Bowler. Sue won a Super Bowl, 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. Cox won a Super Bowl, 1-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. They all feel like they're in the same realm to me. Kevin Williams didn't win a Super Bowl, was a 5-time All-Pro and a 6-time Pro Bowler. I think Hayward has the most sacks of that group, if you really care about the sacks. But other than that, like I don't see where he stands out from that pack in a way that makes me feel confident that right now he's a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, you're right. I had the Pro Football Reference page pulled up just to be able to look at this when I knew we were going to talk about this. What's crazy to me is, man, like how good are the defensive tackle? Well, obviously, if they're in the Hall of Fame, but like the average defensive tackle Hall of Fame monitor score is 102.36. Cam Heyward is 62.95. So, like, not saying that he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer, but that gap between him and guys that are currently in the Hall of Fame at that same position is pretty massive. 21st among defensive tackles right now is Cam Heyward with his Pro Football Reference Hall of Fame monitor score. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that he's not going to get in, but compared to guys that are in there with their average score is, man, that's far off.
I mean, basically, the way you look at it is in terms of modern players, on that Hall of Fame reference score, only Steve McMichael, who just went in this class, this most recent class, after waiting for 30 years, only Steve McMichael had a worse Hall of Fame monitor score than Cam Heyward has right now and still got into the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, it certainly tells you that it's possible, but I doubt it's, I wouldn't call it probable, and it certainly wouldn't be a lock. It certainly would be something that would be in pretty heavy question.
Yeah, I wonder too. It was kind of playing on my mind. Like, I think he's somebody that's going to have to wait. I think that we would be in agreement there. Like, I don't think that he's a first ballot guy if he's going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, probably
not. But I just wonder too. So say he hopefully, ideally, finishes his career with the Steelers. He's got a Walter Payton Man of the Year. Like, how much is that, the non-football stuff, going to play into it as well, or does it not?
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, the voters are people. So, I mean, like, there is not an actual category for off-the-field stuff, but if you want to compare Cam Heyward to an Ndamukong Suh, just in terms of, like, the person, right? Like, I think you got to give a pretty significant edge to Cam Heyward. The other thing is playing for one team for your whole career is a very significant advantage in this process as well. Someone has to go up and present your case to the other voters. Someone for Cam Heyward will be someone that spent his entire career covering him, most likely. It'll be a Steelers reporter. It has been Ed Bouchette, Dale Lawley has done it. I'm not sure who will be doing that for the Steelers entrance going forward. Now that Dale works for the team, I don't think he'll be eligible, but it'll probably be someone who covered a whole lot of Cam Heyward. And so they'll have a relationship. That person will want to pound the table for Cam Heyward in a way that I don't know someone who played for, well, what did Sue play for? 4 or 5 teams, I don't know that he'd have the same and kind of some ignominious exits from some of those places. I don't know that he's going to have the same level of pound the table in his corner that Hayward will. So I think those are advantages. I think the Super Bowl question is very interesting though, because I think, to me, The answer is absolutely 100% yes. Whether you win a Super Bowl should matter about whether or not you get into the Hall of Fame. I want to know what you think first, and then I'll explain why I think that.
See, I've always kind of looked at it as like a tie-breaking type thing between players, and it's always seemed to be weighted more for quarterbacks if they ever won a Super Bowl as opposed to a different position. Like, TJ Watt, who is on the trajectory that he has been on, and
TJ Watt's already a Hall of Famer.
TJ Watt is a Hall of Famer. It hasn't even come close to winning a Super Bowl. So for me, it's kind of more, again, like a tiebreaker type thing if it's close, but I wouldn't put the amount of stock into it anywhere close to what like the stats accumulated on the field are.
Okay. I disagree. I think winning the Super Bowl is pretty important. And not to say that you can't have a great career without winning the Super Bowl. I mean, like Dan Marino, to me, is the example I always go to. You watch that guy play, and you watch the Miami Dolphins, and you knew it wasn't him, right? Like, he was doing everything he could. And, certainly was a great player, way ahead of his time, era-defining kind of player. And easy, no doubter for the Hall of Fame, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl. But I think in general, I think winning a Super Bowl matters. And I think it matters a lot. And I say that because it is not the Hall of Great. It is the Hall of Fame. Fame is part of the equation. You are supposed to be a household name to get into the Hall of Fame. You are supposed to be someone who impacts the greater consciousness of the game, of the sport. I mean, Dan Marino was on TV, on Ice Toner commercials and Ace Ventura, and was a star, right? He was clearly a star. He had star power. Keith Williams, one of those players I talked about when we were talking about defensive linemen. Keith Williams is the best defensive lineman that I named of that group. If I could redraft right now, give me one of those guys, and I know I'm going to get the player that they were in their career, I'm drafting Keith Williams 100 times out of 100. I would never vote for Keith Williams at the Hall of Fame. Keith Williams could be in my living room right now, and I don't know if I would recognize him. He's not a star. He's not famous. You can't be in the Hall of Fame if you're not famous. You have to accomplish some things that make you want to immortalize you. And so I think that is part and parcel of the process for me, is that it's just not just stat collecting. It is not just on the field accomplishments. It is who changed the game. Who do we need to remember? Who from this era can we not tell the story of without? And I think winning Super Bowls is a huge part of that. And I think there are guys that certainly meet that qualification without winning a Super Bowl. But if you just look at numbers, man, this is the one I always go to. Two players I'm a huge fan of personally, played in the same division in the 1990s. One had 12,785 receiving yards and 84 touchdowns. The other had 12,721 receiving yards and 68 touchdowns. Pretty similar guys. One played for 13 seasons, one played for 14. 5-time Pro Bowler versus a 1-time All-Pro and a 3-time Pro Bowler. Art Monk won 3 Super Bowls with the Washington Redskins, was a huge part. In fact, maybe one of the only parts that was consistent outside of the offensive line and Darryl Green through those 3 he was one of the rare guys that connected those 3 Washington Super Bowl winners in the 1980s and the early 1990s. Irving Fryer had a very good career with the Philadelphia Eagles and then in the Patriots and played for the Miami Dolphins a little bit, was actually on the Redskins at the end of his career. Nowhere near the same impact. Nowhere near the same the numbers, similar. In terms of, if you're telling the story of the NFL from 1985 to 1995, you can do it without Irving Fryer. You can't do it without Art Monk. Now, Art Monk had to wait a long time because his numbers aren't great, but he's in the Hall of Fame and Irving Fryer is. And I always think that's the example. Like, those are similar guys. They played in the same division for a number of years. Give me the one who is an essential part of telling the story of 3 Super Bowl winners.
So let me ask, in your mind, because that's where you stand on it, how much I don't know if luck is the right word, because you got to land in the right spot to be able to win Super Bowls too. Like how much does luck just play into a player becoming a Hall of Famer?
Oh, huge. I think it's huge. I think you absolutely, I mean, as like, our Marvin Harrison is in, Reggie Wayne is very close. I think he will eventually get in. Do either of those guys even get close to the Hall of Fame if Peyton Manning isn't their quarterback? No, not even close. Like, I don't even think there were 100 receivers like what Reggie Wayne in the 2000s, like 100. Like, not to say that he wasn't a great player, but he was in a very specific circumstance that worked out really, really well for him. Like it never hits all luck. But I don't. That's the way it goes. Like I'm not trying to pick the best ones. I'm trying to pick the ones that you can't tell the story without. I think if you're talking about 2000s NFL, I need to talk about the Indianapolis Colts. I need to talk about Peyton. I need to talk about Marvin. And I need to talk about Reggie Wayne. I can probably do without the running backs. They were a little bit more transitory. I can probably do without Jeff Saturday and Dallas Clark. I need those three for sure. Like that. I don't know. To me, that's the way it goes. A lot of it, I fully acknowledge that a lot of it is luck. And that, I don't think the Colts win a Super Bowl just because they have Reggie Wayne. And certainly, like, Larry Fitzgerald doesn't have one. A better player in every single way. Like, they are not even comparable players. Give me Larry Fitzgerald on the field 100 times out of 100, and he will get in the Hall of Fame easily also. But, like, I don't know, Reggie Wayne's got that Super Bowl, and man, he was a big part of an important thing that was happening in the NFL at that time. Yeah, I think he's got to get in. Now, like, go down the list one, if you sort like Julio Jones is the next on the Hall of Fame monitor score. I don't have any type of feeling. Julio Jones could not be in the Hall of Fame. That wouldn't bother me at all. Like, what about the Atlanta Falcons in there do we need to tell? Like, I don't know. It's not. I mean, I think he's a good player. I don't know. I don't think he has to be in there for me.
What's interesting is I wanted to bring up conversation head-to-head with Julio Jones. These debates went on forever with Pittsburgh Steelers and Atlanta Falcons fans during their peaks. We've talked a lot about how much the person can play into a player being in the Hall of Fame. You can't really tell the stories of the 2010s NFL without Antonio Brown. But
that's true.
Obviously, there's a lot of other things at play there. Should Antonio Brown be in the NFL Hall of Fame?
On his accomplishments on the field, yes, absolutely. Will he be? Time heals all wounds. We'll see. I think
this was also good timing because he was just on the pivot and this was a conversation.
I think if Antonio Brown doesn't do anything worse than the things he's already done in the rest of his life, which I'm not sure I would bet on. Mm-hmm. I think eventually he will get in. And I do think that there will be, like, the thing that is going to hold back Antonio Brown is that thing I said is that no one is going to go to bat for him. And so I think maybe he's a guy you could see, like, the old timers committee putting in, like, when his, whatever it is, 20 or 30 years. I can't remember what it is, but there's an amount of time where you fall off the regular ballot and you get put into the old timers ballot, and then it doesn't go through the writers. It's by committee. I could see that happening for him. I just think very similarly to Barry Bonds in baseball, you want to do if one of your jobs is voting for the Hall of Fame, the last thing you want to do is vote for someone and think, man, should I have done that? Like, you'd so much rather take a questionable like a vote. Like if you're voting for the MLB and you want to feel good about the process, you're going to vote for Harold Baines and not for Barry Bonds, because Harold Baines is, by all accounts, a good dude, even though he has, like, the worst numbers of any Hall of Famer ever, right? I'm going to vote for, Hines Ward instead of Antonio Brown. I think Hines Ward has a relatively poor Hall of Fame case. I think statistically, I think he's sort of the opposite, right? Where you have to look at the impact that he had on the game, the sport, getting rules changed. I think he has a tougher case, but I'd much rather, if I'm voting and you give me those two, I mean, just me personally, I'm going to vote for Hines Ward because that's who I want to vote for, and I think it's going to take a long time to overcome the bias that AB has created through his own actions against him in the votership.
I agree. I think it will even, like Terrell Owens didn't get in until his third time. There's no reason that Terrell Owens should have been a third time. It had to take him. I mean, 5-time first team All Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, 3 times.
His resume was walk in, but he didn't. So I think it could be a long time, but I think eventually AB will get in, but it could be a while.
And Tio was you mentioned with some of those guys not making an all-decade team going against them. He was 2000's all-decade team, so still didn't get in until his third time. So, all right, interesting conversation, great conversation as always. Alan, tell the people they can find you
at @Saunders_PGH on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. PGH Steelers Now sites account, SteelersNow.com. Like and subscribe. Still sign up for those subscriptions on SteelersNow.com or the email, which is free, and then you just get either every story emailed to your inbox, or you can get a daily digest of our stories. So make sure you don't miss anything. SteelersNow.com. We got all kinds of good stuff over there. Myself, Nick Faribault, is out in Hawaii doing work. He was at the Hawaii Football Museum today. Excited to see what he brings back from there. And we'll keep it rolling.
Yeah, he sent me a video from the beach. I was just sending him a video back of me in my pool. Maybe I'll do that once we wrap up here. Be sure to
send him
subscribe.
a video of the traffic in Monaca and be like, look at what you're missing here.
with a bridge being shut down. Yeah, it's even worse. So yeah. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments. We want your thoughts on the Hall of Fame case, obviously, as well as Najee Harris's contract situation with Rhamondre Stevenson getting paid. Would you have paid Najee Harris this? How does it impact them going forward? We want your thoughts in the comments as well. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, search Steelers Afternoon Drive, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe over there so you don't miss an episode. You can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. Oh, follow us on TikTok too, Steelers Afternoon Drive. Keep forgetting to promote that, but we do have a TikTok. We post clips from the show there every single day. So be sure to head over there and give us a follow if you are on TikTok. Other than that, for Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.